Welcome to the second video in our course, Public Speaking Success. We're going to look at the first step in our framework, the situation analysis. We're going to represent the situation by the acronym COMPASS. And this aligns nicely to the setting the direction of the presentation. The importance of the presentation will determine how much detail you put into this step. But irrespective of the importance, you need to think about every step for every presentation. Also note that this is an iterative process. It isn't cast in stone. You can go back and revisit it. So here it is, complexity. We need to be realistic about what can be achieved in the time we have. Is the complexity of our presentation high, medium, or low for a given audience? For example, for a highly technical audience, you can afford to use industry standard acronyms. This wouldn't work, of course, for a more general audience. Quite often in major presentations, you have both technical and non-technical people, and the non-technical people have a big impact on the final decision, so you need to balance the presentation to both audiences. And that's the challenge, of course. How do you make something complex simple? If you can do that well, that gives you a lot of credibility because it demonstrates you really understand your topic. It was Albert Einstein who said the definition of genius is taking the complex and making it simple. Once you understand the level of complexity the topic has for your audience, you are starting to understand how much work you need to do. Do you need extra resources? Are you trying to achieve too much in a presentation? Do you need two presentations? The other compounding factor is to determine how much time you have. If you've been allocated 40 minutes and with 20 minutes for question time, then plan for your presentation to run for about 30 minutes. This gives you a buffer for overruns or technical difficulties or any ad hoc audience questions. The occasion. The occasion is the reason for the presentation. Is it renewing a contract, an expression of interest, a final presentation, an investor presentation, a competition presentation, a presentation to employees or your colleagues? Whilst this might be an easy one, it's a really important question to ask if someone else requests you to do a presentation. You don't want to be turning up to an executive meeting to give an update when they're expecting a recommendation. Medium. The medium looks at both how you're going to conduct your presentation and the environment. Is it face-to-face or online, one-on-one, one-to-many? How many? Is it an external venue? If so, what resources are available? Do you have to bring your own equipment? A number of venues that I've attended request that you use their laptop, for example, because they know it works. But does it have your version of the software? Is it in a client's office? How is it laid out? Is there standing room or just sitting room? Is it a trade show where you have little control over your environment? Many years ago, I had invited a supplier to a board meeting and they insisted on using some outdated technology. That technology failed. Twice. I was embarrassed, they were embarrassed, and the board was unimpressed. Next is your purpose. You need to be clear as to what you want to achieve as a result of your presentation. In any presentation, there are two objectives. The first type, which we're setting here in this step, is your strategic objective, which is about what you want the audience to feel, to think, and to do differently as a result of your presentation. We don't articulate this to the audience. This is your objective that provides a framework for what you want to achieve. You might say, well, isn't that fairly obvious? We just want to win and get our recommendation accepted. We want them to think we're fabulous. That's true. However, if, for example, you want them to feel comfortable and think that they will have your undivided attention and to sign the contract tomorrow, the question is then, how are you going to do that? You need to be specific. If you don't have a specific metric for the presentation, articulating what you want to achieve, the content of the presentation won't have a direction. The second type of objective is the one you set for your audience within the presentation to let them know what to expect as a result of participating in the presentation. And we'll talk about this one later. Next, we have the audience. The audience is the group of people you are presenting to. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be presenting. The style or the way you speak, craft your visuals, move and gesture will be dependent upon the communication preferences of your audience. How on earth would you know that, I hear you say? Well, here's a few ways. If you've had a meeting with your audience, listen intently to the way that they speak and interact with you. How do they interact with the documents you present and respond to the emails you send? Are they confused by the detail or crave it and ask for more? Do they love to chat about social things or just get to the point? Looking for these small cues can shape the way you present by adjusting your style to theirs. It is also useful to uncover what things are important to the audience personally. What do they value? What motivates them? What are their social values of their company? What are their views on your type of solution? For example, does it have an environmental focus? What you regard as humorous may not be the same for them, especially cross-culturally. Understanding these enables you to tailor your message further. A second element when you're looking at the audience is to understand how they view you. Are you perceived as inexperienced or too experienced and set in your ways? Too creative or not creative enough? Or perhaps they've heard some stories on the grapevine that may or may not be true. If these are potentially an issue, you need to find ways to address them. Subject. The subject of your presentation is your topic. It tells the audience what the presentation is about. Now, you need clarity about your subject to ensure your audience is focused and not guessing where you're about to take them. Don't assume the audience knows your topic. Your presentation might be the 10th one that they've seen that day. For example, a subject might be the social media campaign for Q2 on the 0 to 18-month-year-old Heinz range of baby food. You wouldn't say the Heinz social media campaign. Be specific. Speaker. Although you might not have a choice on this one, determine whether you have the right person presenting. If you go back to the audience analysis, we spoke about the preferences of your audience. If your prospect has a strong ethic of workplace diversity and inclusion, you might think twice about taking a presentation team of 4 white middle-aged males from the same private school to a presentation. You can do these steps in any order or follow the order we have in the workbook. These steps can be done quickly, but once completed, you should keep them handy for the duration of the planning stage and also attached to your PowerPoint deck or speaking notes when you file them once the presentation is delivered. Okay, that's the first step down. The next video looks at content.